can see people are joining, so we'll give folks another minute or so to get in here and then get started, just to be respectful of everyone's time. So thank you everyone who's joining us now for your interest in this report. We're really excited to be sharing updates on, what a more sustainable and just alternative to expansion could be. So thank you for making time this morning. We'll give folks just another 30 seconds before we get started. All right, looks like a lot of people have joined us today, so really excited to get this started. Hi, everyone. My name is Greg May. I'm the Transportation Policy Director at 1,000 Friends of Wisconsin. And like I said earlier, I just want to thank you all for joining us today to discuss the future of I94 and the potential for a more sustainable and just alternative to expansion. Of course, there we go. As soon as we start, the slide stopped working. First, I'd like to thank our partners on this report, the ACLU of Wisconsin, Midwest Environmental Advocates, the Sierra Club Wisconsin Chapter, Wisconsin Environment, and WisBERG. As many of you know, Wisconsin DOT is proposing a $1.1 billion highway expansion for this 3.5-mile stretch between the Marquette Interchange and the Zoo Interchange, which passes through a number of Milwaukee neighborhoods. This is a generational investment in Milwaukee's transportation system, and if we are going to spend $1 billion, we should do it right. The project should be context sensitive to the communities that are adjacent to the corridor. That is why our coalition commissioned expert transportation planner and 25-year New Jersey DOT veteran Mark Stout to review the feasibility of options beyond expansion, and he authored this report. We were looking to find options that will better promote access for the surrounding neighborhoods, will reduce carbon emissions, and will improve access to jobs, healthcare, and basic goods for everyone, not just suburban commuters. And the result of this effort is the Fix at 6 report that promotes the transit rehab alternative for I94. The transit rehab alternative will repair and modernize the roads, fixing safety and operational concerns, but keep the current 6 lanes. It looks to add an additional bus rapid transit route along National and Greenfield Avenues, as well as a north-south route along 27th Street as promoted by the MPO. And it promotes walking and biking infrastructure, particularly along the Stadium Freeway. And the report also looks at future opportunities to further improve the corridor. And our goal with this report was obviously to promote a more sustainable and just alternative for the corridor, one that is responsive to the needs and desires of the surrounding neighborhoods. And obviously the goal also was to provide a vision for advocates for a better future, and this hypothetical map from the report helps illustrate that. The Fix at 6 report also highlights the reasons why expansion is not the right choice. For starters, expansion will increase transportation emissions at a time when we need to be doing the opposite. It will harm wetlands and green space, increasing impervious surfaces despite Milwaukee experiencing many of its wettest years on record over the last decade. And expansion will also continue a status quo from WisDOT that favors wealthy suburban commuters while ignoring local road repair and transit. And despite what WisDOT is saying, expansion will not solve what little congestion issues exist. As was noted in a recent Wisconsin Business Journal article, Milwaukeans enjoy fairly quick and easy commutes compared to those in other large American cities, and they have not seen a substantial increase in commute times over the past decade. But even if there were congestion issues, highway expansion does not solve them, as is proven by both academic research and decades of lived experiences in cities across America. Simply put, if we could have built our way out of congestion, we would have done so already. This expansion will not help those who cannot or do not drive, and it does not address the harsh effects of I94's original construction on the surrounding neighborhoods, including the increased exposure to air pollutants. So finally, we would like to see that WisDOT legitimately evaluate the transit rehab alternative as a feasible alternative and make sure that expansion options are appropriately evaluated for their impact on climate change and racial equity. Working with the city of Milwaukee and with the MPO, we hope that WisDOT should initiate plans for a national and greenfield BRT line and look at bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure along the corridor. And we want WisDOT to pursue federal RAISE grants, formerly known as Tiger and Build grants, which is a discretionary source of funding designed to support projects that improve racial equity, reduce impacts on climate change, and create good paying jobs, which this transit rehab alternative will do. For those looking for more detail and to learn more about the transit rehab alternative, a copy can be found at our project website, fixit6.org. Please check out the website. You can learn more information about the project. And for those interested, there's an opportunity for individuals and organizations to endorse the project. So thank you for letting me get through my spiel. We're going to now turn to some local advocates to kind of share and discuss what are better alternatives to expansion and what it means to them. So we are going to first throw it over to Adele Nance, MICA's transportation task force and a local transit writer. So we have a recording of Adele who was able to provide this testimony for us. Perfect.
Hi, my name is Adele Nance. I'm concerned about the I94.
One moment, I have to optimize the audio.
No worries. While we have Cassie fix these technical difficulties, I'm going to first throw it over to, unless she's got it now. Give it a try.
Hi, my name is Adele Nance. I'm concerned about the I94 transit building of that. For me, as a Milwaukee citizen and an average bus rider, I feel though the money should be allocated to our local bus service here in Milwaukee as well as Benisham. Because what I'm saying is because that we have poor communication as far as transportation. Where I live, there's only 2 bus lines that run through here. It's a 19 and a 22. I see you expand them to Mayfair Mall, but we still need buses in between there, and I think we're doing us a disservice, really, because that money could be allocated somewhere else as far as adding more transit on buses on here as well, because the wintertime comes, it's hard to catch a bus because they run frequently, but not that frequently in the snow. And it is a shame how you do us. We know that we're the melting pot of the city of what the money is going to. The I-94 transit is not that big of a spot to add on to. And as I was in one meeting, they said they're going to cut off so much of that on the side that people can't get off if they have emergency if they need emergency to stop. And it was kind of heartening to me when we asked the guy about it. He said, well, it's going to take up a little bit, but imagine somebody have an emergency, can't get off if they get hit by another vehicle. That is a hazard to somebody's health and life. And to pass this bill for somebody else's benefit and not the community is sad. We already got pollution. We already got lead poison here. What else can we get in here, you know? It's a shame how y'all doing this inner city people. You know, you're going to have jobs for us. And we need the job. If the job is going to come, who's going to take them? You're not going to give them to us because we don't see that. And time after time, you have outsiders come in and take the jobs. So where do we benefit in it? But other than the money is coming through here for y'all to use up. And it's hardening. And it's heartbreaking. To me, it's heartbreaking. It's a shame that we are the ones that the money's allocated to, but we don't get the benefit of the funds that somebody else do. And then when you make your plans about the highway, and then you say, look, we're going to do a survey, we're going to do this, but you never do it until you come to the table to see what you have assessed. There's nothing there to show that you have assessed, but you're going to do it. So this means that if you're gonna get the highway in there, you're gonna save this one thing and then do another and still won't get assessment that you need to do it. And that's when it's gonna run down the drain. Right now, our streets are raggedy. We got pavement with cement on top of it. We got roads got holes in them. We got roads that cracking now. Anytime somebody go over a bump, you know, the city not gonna pay for our tires and our family cars getting fixed because they're gonna say it's not in the budget. So sometimes I get lost for words, but we need to do better, much better for how you treat citizens right in the city of Milwaukee.
Great. And we want to thank Adele for providing those comments and for making time where she can, really impactful and thoughtful comments and about the need to do better, which we hope this report can do. So continuing on our discussion about what a better alternative to expansion means and how local advocates are working on transportation in Milwaukee, we're going to throw it over to Carissa Givens, who is the Milwaukee Community Programs Manager at the Wisconsin Bike Fed. Take it away, Carissa.
Thanks, Greg. My name is Carissa Givens. I'm from the Wisconsin Bike Federation, and I've been with them since 2012. Wisconsin Bike Fed has been actively educating the public on their rights and responsibilities as cyclists and pedestrians for over 20 years. I want to say in June of this year, I actually led a bike ride from Milwaukee's near south side that actually neighbors the I94 with a group of Latina residents. We actually crossed I94 heading north towards a neighborhood near the University of Milwaukee. And I want to say what struck me about that experience was there was a child, maybe about 10 years of age on the ride, who said that they loved riding through the city and it was a wonderful experience. But when they reached their destination, they felt like they were in a completely different country. They said it was much more friendly, much more appealing. They felt safer. And I think that that's something that should really resonate with all of us, that there are neighborhoods that are bordering I-94, the start of this interstate, that are significantly lacking quality of life amenities compared to the rest of the city. Back in 2014, Wisconsin actually used to be ranked third most bicycle-friendly state in the country, according to the League of American Bicyclists Bicycle-Friendly Index. And now we've definitely fallen from grace. We're not even within the top 20. According to the League report, Wisconsin essentially is getting a D+ in infrastructure and funding and ranks 36 out of 50 states in their pursuit of better design and existing infrastructure for pedestrian and bicycle accommodations. So we're without, and one of those, a few reasons why is we're without a statewide complete streets policy that complements our local policy. We haven't updated our statewide bicycle plan in the past 10 years, and we're spending less than 2% of federal funds on bike pedestrian infrastructure. So $1.59 per capita of spending on bike pedestrian infrastructure compared to our neighboring states like Minnesota, who are spending about $3.50 per capita on bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. So instead of repeating these mistakes that of the 20th century, exacerbating pollution, climate change, our preferred alternative, as Greg said, is to fix this project first and focus more of our attention on vulnerable users of the road. So WisDOT has high fatality corridors, and we need to work diligently and urgently building the infrastructure that supports our climate emission reduction goals, improves public health and traffic safety, and ensures racial equity and provides opportunity for a wide range of mobility choices for all Milwaukeeans. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Carissa. And thank you for that wonderful perspective on how we can be doing better. And especially that, you're really unique and excellent perspective on walking and biking infrastructure and how that, works in Milwaukee and providing that kind of context for us today. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to pass it over to Cheryl Nen, who is a river keeper with Milwaukee River Keeper, a real expert on the stormwater and the water impacts of this kind of project. Cheryl?
Great, thanks, Greg. So I'm Cheryl with Milwaukee River Keeper, and I'm going to talk a little bit about water impacts and community impacts. So the proposed I94 highway expansion would increase polluted stormwater runoff to the Menominee River, as well as several creeks to the west. And then it would also increase flow to the combined sewers to the east, or the eastern portion of the project area. This increase in runoff adds to the likelihood of sewage overflows during severe wet weather. And highway expansion will also lead to more pollution of our rivers, which drain to Lake Michigan, the drinking water supply for over 1 million people locally. So prior expansion alternatives considered by WisDOT would increase pavement by 40 to 56 acres and dramatically increase impervious surfaces by 23% in the western half and 67% in the eastern half of the project area. Climate change models for our area project increasing likelihood of severe wet weather in the future. Already, our region broke rainfall records in both 2018 and 2019 and experienced higher than average rainfall in 2020. Polluted runoff from this expansion and other highway expansion will continue to increase over time because of this increased rainfall. Climate change demands smarter development that creates resiliency rather than increasing flood risk, sewer overflows, and pollution of our air and waters. Our rivers are already highly impaired by sediment, chloride, and other pollutants that run off from our roadways. We need to fix at 6, reconstruct the highway in the existing footprint, and allocate more funding towards stormwater management. There is an urgent need to protect and restore the natural areas and waterways in this corridor, not further pollute them. As WisDOT works on a supplemental EIS for this project, we not only want to see a comparison of the environmental and neighborhood impacts from the proposed highway reconstruction options, including a 6-lane option with transit, but we also want serious consideration of deconstruction alternatives for portions of 175 north and south that would reduce air and water pollution. We also need to see WisDOT address impacts that this highway spur has had on our neighborhoods, specifically neighborhoods of color. All across our country, highways have been used as the means to separate and marginalize people. We have a real opportunity here to bring our community together as part of this project instead of causing further division and damage. Thanks for your consideration.
Great. Thank you for sharing your perspective, Cheryl. And it really does highlight, the insanity of expanding a highway and increasing all this impervious surface area at a time, when we know that there's going to be bigger impacts from, climate change and some of the wettest years on record. So, hopefully that your perspective is wonderful and kind of keeping us centered on some of the real impacts that we'll be facing if we do expand the highway and how we can do better. Great. And lastly, we're going to throw it over to Victoria Gillay, a physician and member of Wisconsin's Health Professionals for Climate Action. Victoria, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for participating in this crucial conversation today. Like I said, my name is Victoria Gillay, and I'm a primary care physician in Milwaukee. I got into medicine to help people who are suffering, but I'm here this morning because there's only so much that I can do to alleviate that suffering from within my exam room. I'm here today to advocate for changes that decide whether my patients stay caught up in dirty traffic or whether they can breathe easy and move freely. Over 50,000 people, die prematurely each year in the US because of exposure to vehicle emissions specifically. From the moment of conception to their last breath, that makes my patients sicker. Road pollution causes stillbirths, preterm births, delayed cognitive development in children, asthma, heart attacks, cancer, strokes, and even dementia. It's not right that breathing air can make people so sick. People want to be outside. When COVID forced the world to slow down, many people were so excited to be outside and be protected and in a safe space. But when COVID restrictions lifted, my patients who live in the shadows of overpasses came in to see me with alarming frequency, with worsening asthma control as these air polluting vehicles got back on the road. It probably comes as no surprise after the rest of the speakers today that my patients that were coming from these areas rife with vehicle pollution were low income and communities of color. We know that these communities bear the brunt of air pollution, but it doesn't have to be this way. Many other forms of transportation exist, and not only are they better for our air, using them is better for our bodies. So many of my patients want to know what they can do to stay healthy and avoid being on medications for as long as possible. And my answer is almost always the same: exercise. Exercising at least 150 minutes per week adds up to 5 years onto your lifespan, and it decreases the risk of diseases like dementia that decrease quality of life. I've worked with medical students and trainees who complain when patients don't follow that advice. But when the closest grocery store is on the other side of a highway and you're priced out of even a YMCA gym membership, exercise can be hard to find. Honestly, the only reason I can follow my own advice is because I'm a bicycle commuter. When I practiced in Madison, I recommended that my patients do the same thing. Now, I do not. Disconnected cycling infrastructure, disintegrating, fast-moving streets, and just general transportation planning that favors cars means that for the vast majority of my patients, a bike ride is neither feasible nor safe. Better bicycle infrastructure would give my patients the ability to make healthy choices. But it doesn't have to be biking. Even public transit is a better choice for health and passenger cars. Actually, individuals who use public transportation get over 3 times the amount of physical activity per day compared to those who do not. All of this is to say, when I think of things my patients need to live better lives, I have literally never had bigger highways on that list. But that list does include cleaner air, more active transportation, and also decreased greenhouse gas emissions to prevent the worst health consequences that are coming from climate change. I94 expansion does nothing to help my patients. The Fix at 6 transit rehab proposal does, and that's what we deserve for health in Milwaukee. Thank you. With that, I think I'll turn it back over to Greg to finish us off.
Great. Thank you so much, Victoria, for that wonderful perspective and for giving us a bigger picture on, just how these highway expansions, run through the quality of life for everybody, and, the health impacts that we often don't think about. So great. Thank you again for everyone for coming today. I really appreciate everyone making the time. And again, a plug for the fixit6.org, our project website, where you can find the report and people can endorse it if they're interested in doing so. So we'll open it up to questions for people who have any, and get it on the road. See one question here in chat. Charles says, hi, when taking questions, could someone please answer my question about the timing of this report? Are you trying to get the DOT to consider as part of the SEIS? Great, well, yes. So the SEIS, which is the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement, is the kind of further studying that WisDOT is doing right now. They recognized about 6 months ago that that they were using outdated traffic counts, that COVID had changed commuting patterns, that there needed to be more public input. A lot of the report was the original environmental documentation was from the first time this project existed, so it involved public meetings from 2012, 2013, 2014. So it was relying on public input and information that was 7 or 8 years old, traffic counts that could be even older. And so they're doing this the supplemental to kind of have more public input and to review the entire process. And so we are, understanding that there is going to be public input, hopefully in October. We don't have a specific date yet, but a meeting in fall, and then later into 2022. We're trying to promote this transit rehab alternative, the Fix at 6 alternative, as a legitimate alternative that the DOT actually to actually look at and report on, to give it an honest evaluation of its possibility. So yes, I think we're hoping to get that into the SEIS and to promote it at public meetings, to answer Charles' question. So Eric Gunn's question is, will at least your initial recommendations be able to be funded by the same streams of money that fund the original DOT plan, or will there need to be a reconfiguring of the funding sources themselves? So that is, from my understanding, and I can follow up with Mark Stout, who is the author of this report. He unfortunately at the last minute was unable to, had a scheduling conflict and wasn't able to join us, but he is open to any questions that people have, so we can share his contact information with you to get more technical answers if they are asked. And from my understanding about the streams of money, yes. So the DOT talks about how there's no possible way for us to fund transit and walking and biking with the funding sources that are used, which is technically true because DOT has exclusively pursued a highway expansion alternative, and the money that they have pursued is specifically for that. But because we're taking a step back and we're doing a year review with the environmental documentation. We're having more public outreach. We also think that they should take a step back and look at different funding sources, mainly the RAISE grants, which were mentioned earlier, which are discretionary federal funds that can be used to promote walking, biking, and transit alternatives. There's a lot of money in that pot, and could very easily be used to fund this transit rehab alternative. So we'll do there needs to be some reconfiguring, I think, already with FHWA and getting approval. So we're hoping that they'll use these RAISE funds to make a project that will better reflect the neighborhood's desires and to break from the status quo of just doing highway expansion, of pursuing, walking and biking and transit alternatives that could really improve the access to basic goods, to jobs in these neighborhoods that surround the I94 expansion, and not just trying to promote a transportation system for people who own cars, but for everybody. Nate Beck is asking, do you have an estimate for how much your alternative to expansion would cost? It's a good question, Nate. So the DOT's initial estimate for the project, for the expansion project, is about $1.1 billion. There's been kind of some flux around, it's been a little vague about how much money the actual expansion portion of the project would cost. But in the interviews that I've seen, the estimates are between $300 and $500 million for the expansion. So that's just adding one lane in each direction for those 3.5 miles. So our transit rehab option is, hypothetical. It's a vision for what could be. So it's not, we would hope to, in this process, have DOT work with the communities and work with the local neighborhoods and the impacted communities around it to find what kind of project and transportation vision works best for them, not just an expansion project, but how could the people around the project be, have their lives improved. And so the cost of the project aren't definitive because the project is still a little bit in flux. We would hope it to be reflective of the vision of the neighborhoods around there. That being said, if we're spending $300 million on expansion, we can certainly be spending $300 million better than that. The east-west bus rapid transit route that's being developed now costs about $55 million. And walking and biking infrastructure is some of the most cost-effective and efficient forms of infrastructure we can spend money on. So, I don't think it would be any stretch of the imagination to think that, this $300 to $400 million we're using on expansion could be used to build this project, still keeping it within the, the original price tag. So if we're spending $1 billion, we can just use that money instead of expanding and just adding a lane in each direction. We could build these bus rapid transit routes, and we could build the walking and biking infrastructure recommended. Next question on here. I didn't think I'd be reading these out loud. This is kind of fun. Eric Gunn is asking, will additional approval by the state legislature be required, or can DOT be able to implement your plan if they accept it? That's a great question, Eric. And I'll circle back and get you an answer on that one. I know that they have they have given approval for the enumeration of the highway to kind of work on the project, but I'm not sure about the specific logistics on the timing of approval and requirements. So I'll get back to you on that question, Eric. Thank you. Or if somebody on the call is feeling like a real expert on the legislative process, can comment as well. So that's the end of the chat questions. Feel free to continue writing them, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question, you could do so as well. Like I said, the 6at6.org is our project website. Please go there and you'll find more information about the project, share it on social media. And we're hoping to have people and individuals and organizations endorse this report as a more just and environmentally friendly alternative. Charles is asking, there does seem to be congestion between 70th Street and 15th Street. Do you think you can really offer enough alts to reduce that congestion? So that's a good question, Charles. One we hear quite a bit. As we mentioned in the Wisconsin Business Journal article and several articles around, they talk about how Milwaukee, compared to other cities of its size, do not have congestion issues that are serious. It continues to be ranked as one of the fastest and easiest cities to commute around. There are occasionally this highway does slow down, during rush hour or during Brewers games, but these are regular features of highways across America. It's more of a car problem than a congestion problem. And in the big picture, traffic moves pretty easily throughout the region. And even if there really was incredibly serious congestion, there's plenty of evidence that both academic and lived experience to prove that expansion cannot solve congestion problems. So if we're going to spend $400 million to shave off a minute or two for daily commuters, we would, much rather see that money be spent on infrastructure with a proven track record to reduce congestion, which is walking, biking, and transit. And there's plenty of academic research, getting to your question, there's plenty of academic research that shows walking and biking and transit's ability to reduce congestion. And that's especially true for transit routes that are near major corridors like I94. It's one of the most proven and effective ways to reduce congestion is to invest in transit that runs parallel to these major corridors. So to answer your question, yes, we believe that these, walking, biking, and transits can reduce congestion along this corridor. Thank you for the question. Megan has posted in the chat that they'll be sending out the news release via email, and you can also find it on our project website. Thank you, Megan. I see a question here from Dan Schaefer. It's asking us, can you walk us through what this proposal advocates for in regards to the Stadium Freeway / Highway 175? Yeah, so, one of the major corridors that's been identified as a real problem in the area is the Stadium Freeway, which I know your publication has covered as well. And so, like I said, what we were mentioning earlier, this project is hypothetical. It's hoping to be responsive to what the community wants, not just what DOT is continuing its status quo. It hopes to be reflective of the neighborhood's desires. And so from what we've heard, we'd like to see that project maybe turned into a boulevard system, no longer operating as a freeway, that includes more walking and biking and transit options that's friendlier to the surrounding neighborhoods, but also providing better access and hopefully safer infrastructure. What the specifics of that could be will be determined later. But we envision a pedestrian and bicycle boulevard system that is far friendlier to the surrounding neighborhoods and provides better access between these neighborhoods, because obviously the Stadium Freeway acts as a major barrier, as well as a place that produces a lot of pollution and traffic safety issues. So we'd hope to remediate those, but the specifics I think would be something that would be worked with in conjunction with the neighborhoods around it. So Nate Beck is asking, WisDOT says crash rates are something like double the state average on I94 east-west. How does your alternative address the existing safety problem? It's a really good question, Nate. In Wisconsin's DOT, the DOT's environmental documentation and their original documentation for this project, they said that you could fix the safety and operational concerns within the 6-lane project. So we can solve the safety and operational concerns by modernizing the project, but we don't need to expand it. The reason WisDOT is pursuing the expansion project is purely congestion, and they say so in their original documentation. So we can solve the issues with safety and operations, and we get these crash rates down while still staying within 6 lanes. And WisDOT's environmental documentation backs that up. And a lot of the most serious crashes, as we know, occur at high speeds, not in congestion. So, like I said, this project will be able to address the safety and operational concerns. Danielle asks, I believe there was a previous lawsuit challenging expansion that was dropped. Are you considering a legal challenge if WisDOT or the administration moves forward with their proposed expansion? Hi, Danielle. So, I think that that is a question that is still being considered, that is a little bit outside of the scope of this project, although I know that there are partners and groups that are considering the idea. Of course, because the zoo interchange was a project that was, brought in federal court and lost. It was found to be a discriminatory project, and there had to be, remediation for that project because it did not do enough to serve those who cannot or do not drive. And so I94 East-West project is along the same corridor. It's right next to the zoo interchange, and does not do anything to help those who cannot or do not drive. So it may be susceptible to those same problems. And certainly is a continuation of the same thinking that got them there at the same place for the zoo interchange project. So I know that some groups are considering that option, but I can't say for certain. I can't speak definitively that they're preparing a legal challenge. That's for my partners to speak on. Great. A lot of questions. Thank you everyone for your interest and for making time this morning for our project. We really appreciate everyone's reporting on this topic and keeping it in the top of the limelight. It of course is an enormous investment, in a generational investment in Milwaukee, and we really hope that they get it right. So we appreciate everyone's, we appreciate all of your interest in reporting on this topic. I'm going to give folks another minute or two to type in any remaining questions that they may have. And then if we don't get any, we'll wrap it up. Again, as has been plugged in by Megan in the chat, and it will be sent out to emails to everyone who's available or who's on this list. Please check out our project website at 6at6.org. We have the full report there and the opportunity to share and do an endorsement project for individuals and organizations who think that this is a better future for Milwaukee, as all of our partners do here. Okay, well, seeing no more questions, thank you everyone. Thank you to our speakers, to Carissa, to Cheryl, to Victoria, to Adele. We appreciate everyone who spoke today in favor of this project and all of the incredible work that all of our partners have done on this project. Like I said, we really believe that this is, there's so much potential for a more sustainable and more just alternative to expansion, one that would address the harsh impacts of I-94's original construction, and one that, would provide better access to jobs, to healthcare, to basic goods for everyone, not just those who drive. So we're a big proponent of the 6at6 report, and we hope that WisDOT honestly evaluates its potential and really meets with the neighborhood to meet, and the communities that surround I94 to meet their needs and desires. Thank you so much. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to email anyone, any of our partners. Email me. I'm Greg at 1000 Friends of Wisconsin. Like I said, I'm Greg May. I'm the Transportation Policy Director at 1000 Friends of Wisconsin. So feel free to reach out with any questions you may have. Thank you.